From CRI Simple Numbers, this is Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers Podcast, a podcast for those who champion market growth and anchor the nation's economy, small businesses, and entrepreneurs.
Hey there. Welcome to the Simple Numbers Profitability Playbook Podcast episode. God only knows I didn't look again. But anyways, we're back with another episode. That's Brandon Graham, Mike Maxson, and we're going to chat about some things. But Brandon, you have a good weekend, man? I think you were at an event.
Yeah, so we were fortunate enough to kind of keynote the Lawn Care Life Conference. It was down in just outside of Birmingham, Alabama. There were lawn care companies from all over the country there. Great group of folks. I think there was close to like 150 or so. And did two different sessions. Had a VIP session on Friday and went through several different topics with them. So kind of the Simple Numbers Playbook was one of the things that we talked about, which is basically kind of the process of achieving profitability. We talked then about some inflation and pricing strategies, what was going on in the marketplace and how they needed to adapt to that, and kind of some do's and don'ts when it comes to pricing. We shifted gears and went through a strategic exercise with them, just very high level, a couple of different processes that they could follow then once they'd identified, some of those levers from the previous two presentations that we gave, how they could start implementing that. Did some Q&A, which is always my favorite. Then the next morning we went through mastering margins and our favorite topic that we get to talk about, labor efficiency. So awesome. Group had a lot of questions, a lot of really good, solid companies there that you kind of look at it in terms of demand in the industry, and it's growing. It's doing really well. And, you had mixes of folks that, strictly just cut grass to companies that did pest control as well as tree and shrub treatment, lawn care treatment, hardscape design, and builds on that. So good mix of folks there, and it was a blast. It's always fun whenever you can get out and talk to a group of entrepreneurs and get another data point around, here's what we're seeing, here's what's going on, here's what's working, here's what's not working, here's the challenges that we have. And what you start to see is there's so many similarities. You might be in lawn care, you might be in the medical industry, but many times you're dealing with very similar issues inside your business. So it was really cool. There were a couple takeaways that I thought were interesting. One is the growth of robotic mowers. So, it'd been around for many years, and I think the technology on them, like with most emerging robotics, it has developed very quickly. But they can do some really cool things. I mean, using GPS technology. Excuse me, I'm struggling with some allergies. GPS technology can get within like a centimeter on your property. The battery life cycle has improved substantially from what it used to look like. And, one of the things I thought was pretty cool is a handful of them are adopting the business model where they're deploying them and then basically turning it into a subscription-based service.
Mm.
And so,
Good idea.
They come out, set up the parameters for the mower and what it needs to do. They program it, and then once it's on a program, here you go. And that sucker's leaving its little docking station, going out and, cutting the yard every other day. And then, they're managing that. So you kind of can see how it's changed from a service to a subscription. And, especially kind of considering some of the labor challenges that are out there.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What's their labor situation?
Yeah, that's a game changer, without a doubt. And so, great opportunity for a lot of folks that are doing that. It's not a fit for every property, obviously. So don't see the traditional kind of service offerings going away, but it's a great supplement to offer it. In terms of the labor picture, very similar to what we talked about on some past episodes. Labor's tight, labor inflation, especially when you're $25 or less, is kind of your average wage there. You're seeing a lot of inflation as far as that part goes. And two, they deal with the seasonality. It's one of the comments I really like is, we don't enjoy, or we enjoy the downtime that the winter provides, but we don't enjoy the down money that the winter brings with it. And so, once again, that subscription service is something you can do annually. And so, you keep the cash flow pretty steady as far as that goes. But
Yeah, you just want to pay out of sight, out of mind. Just hit the cards. I don't want to have to.
exactly.
What was everyone's overall economic outlook? Did it feel positive?
Yeah, it was positive, without a doubt. And two, part of it is just the industry that they're in. I'll use myself for an example. So when I was 15, I went around our neighborhood, knocked on doors in late winter, and said, "Hey, who's taking care of your yard this year?" Now, it wasn't the nicest neighborhood ever. People had treated yards and all these feet. We were cutting grass, right? And so I went around, knocked on doors, and I got 6 or 7 yards. And then I'd take off in the morning, couldn't dry, so I had to ride the lawnmower around with a reed eater and my gas tank and my lawnmower and go around. And for a 15-year-old kid, made what was a lot of money for 15 years old.
Especially that long ago.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a little while. And so, that being said, when was the last time you saw a 15-year-old kid in your neighborhood going door to door, asking to cut yards, or even cutting their own yard for that matter? And so it has become one of those things that a lot of folks just don't want to deal with the hassle. And because of that, the industry is definitely growing. So you kind of combine the technology that's out there now, the you might say the dad brag of having a really nice yard. And perhaps we all have that competition, right?
And you got to pay to have someone treat it. You got to pay someone treat it. I've tried the whole thing before where I put my own chemicals on it. I wasn't, this is okay, but not as good as paying one of them companies.
Right. And so that being said, all those things are contributing, and it's definitely an industry that's growing. So pretty cool.
Awesome. Sweet. We got for those listening, we got our Simple Numbers Mastermind group meets next week. We'll be hitting up Scottsdale. Looking forward to that. It is, yeah. And for those of you who don't know, we run our own mastermind group, have for years, and it's one of those things where we get together, data share, aggregate models, talk each business. They obviously hit the group up for information. We have guest speakers, presentations, and then we do some fun things, which is usually good. We've done tours. We've gone to the Florida Everglades. We've had a good time on these, but it's really been a way for them to get out and just focus purely on bettering themselves financially with other high performing business owners. And I know a lot of people are in groups, but there's definitely a benefit to being around other owners who have experienced what these ones have experienced, and bouncing ideas off of, because they got some good insight on that stuff.
The thing I like best is they really challenge each other.
Mm-hmm.
You can fool some people, but you're not fooling the people in this group. And if there's an area of your business that, whether it was something from the last meeting that you said you were going to take care of or initiate and get rolling, and you don't, they're going to call you on it. When it comes to sometimes those difficult things that you have to do in a business around your team, whether that's letting folks go or taking that leap and hiring that next key person, they're going to share experiences in doing that, hold you accountable to it. And so I think one of the things that we've seen is probably some of the best benefit isn't necessarily the conversations that come up in our sessions. It's the conversation they have between sessions and at dinner and what have you, and just kind of picking each other's brain. And it's been a really good group that not only is willing to take advice and information and coaching, but share. It's kind of that two-way street. Everybody contributes. And the other thing is it's a great mix of different types of businesses.
Oh yeah.
We've had them, manufacturing to healthcare, service industry, obviously construction industry. And so you're going to get different viewpoints, based upon what they're doing every day. And, there's always lessons that are transferable.
Oh yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah. Looking forward to it. So cool. So we got a little media mash going on today. Got a cool article wanted to touch on, get some lessons out of, but The wild economic behind Ferrari's domination of the luxury car market by Mr. Stephen Wilmot there over at the Wall Street Journal. Obviously, if you guys haven't guessed, we frequent that publication quite a bit. I recommend if you're in business doing so. But this is a good one. Brandon, what made you bring it up, man?
Well, I figured you were in the market for a Ferrari.
Yeah, well, let's go talk to Mr. Crabtree about my compensation. Well, yeah.
As you're reading the article, good luck.
Yeah, and what I liked about it in there too, it said if you have a few $100,000 laying around, it's like I got kids, man. That's like those are like Ferraris, with the way they cost.
So, the thing that stood out to me in the article, there's a line in the article that says, "We are a luxury company that is also doing cars." And so they view themselves as an automobile manufacturer. They view themselves as a luxury company. And the article goes into kind of explaining, similar to kind of like designer handbags and other luxury items. And so they've done this great job of creating exclusivity. Not everybody has.
My line in it that I liked was Enzo Ferrari's scarcity dictum. It says in there is Ferrari will always deliver one car less than the market demands. I thought that was great.
And if you're in a service-based business, not every service-based business is obviously going after that very top of the market and trying to create exclusivity, but there's a lot of them that are. And so, it's the buzz, it's the allure, it's the status symbol, all the above that kind of goes with the brand that they've created. And, it's kind of that thing of they intentionally limit supply. Well, we know the laws of supply and demand, right? Or you limit it if you've got demand, in which they've done a great job of creating. The other thing that stands out is when you look at the past, we've talked a lot about this, the past 2 to 3 years of economic performance, it hadn't been that great. Yet items that are luxury are still moving quite nicely. And we said it many times. You either want to be in the Rolex business or the Casio business, but the youth Rolex business, it isn't here to stay. It's going to go away. And it did, whenever you saw the change there. So that being said, as you kind of look at the position that you hold in the marketplace, are you a necessity like a Casio, or are you a Rolex like Ferrari? Meaning, hey, it's luxury. You don't have to have it, but there's enough folks who have the disposable income, or your services in such demand that you can limit it and kind of create that. Or are you the dreaded used Rolex?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's been the hard one to move. And so as you kind of look at what you do, or the offering that you have, rather, you sometimes have to back up and go, okay, well, who really are we? That might be our product, but what are we really good at?
Sure.
And so do we need to shift and change that somewhat?
Well, and I like too that is they know their market. We deal with a lot of it we talked about this. I don't know if we've ever mentioned this, I'm sure, but a lot of the businesses when they come to us are between 1 and 10, 1 and 20 million. So we get a lot between 1 and 5 million. And so they're a lot of times figuring themselves out, right? Ferrari obviously knows who they are, but you'll get people that when we first start working with them, they sell to everybody and anything. Like, hey, I got to make that next sale. I got to build my revenue and all that stuff. And it is, and we know how it is. I mean, Brandon, when I started, and for as long as you've been here, prior to really getting Simple Numbers Consulting off the ground, I mean, we took on bookkeeping, we took on tax at any pace we could. But then obviously as you grew, it's like, hey, our core customer is that entrepreneur that wants to grow their business and have the data to obviously help make better decisions. And that's where the focus needed to be. And Ferrari, I mean, they don't waver. I mean, there's nothing going to make them move off of what they do. And I think the lesson that I took from it was this is a company that is very rigid in exactly what they want to do economically with their products, exactly who they want to sell to, and they don't care. I love it. I really do.
There's another tidbit in the article I thought was really interesting. They said, talking about a limited edition offering that they have on some of their vehicles. And they said the typical person who's going to be able to purchase one of those has bought at least 10 new Ferraris before they will qualify to purchase that. And so what I liked about it was it rewards loyalty. And some of you guys might have experienced this as well, but years ago, it's not as popular now as it used to be, but the satellite TV providers, I think you had a handful that were out there. I know Dish Network was one of them, and there are a couple of others. And you'd see, you might be a customer for 5 or 10 years, never missed a payment, had on auto pay, bought Monday or a Sunday ticket, everything. Ideal customer, right? And you'd see them run ads that were for new customers coming on board and what they would do for it.
Oh, yeah.
I want to get a little jaded because it's, here I've been the ideal customer forever, and you're giving, almost a year free to somebody who moves or signs up. And it was kind of like, come on, man,
And since we're reading from the Wall Street Journal, my renewal is up next month, and they charge me the full price, and I call them and I say those exact words. I go, I'm looking, and if I was a new customer, I would get this, but you're going to charge me 3 times a new customer when I've been your customer now for I don't even know how many years. And I have to do this to them every single year. I did it with SiriusXM too. They do the same thing. It's like when I was a new customer, you had no problem charging me $10 a month. Then you go to renew for 300, and then they all of a sudden magically find a promo to get me there. But you really inconvenience me.
The gold mine that is inside your business is your existing customer base. Mm-hmm. And so many folks spend tons and tons of money and waste a ton of money always going after the new one, and they forget about all the folks that they currently have. Mm-hmm. And so if you look at your existing customer base, I think Ferrari's done a great job of not only allowing them to benefit from something new, and continuing to kind of create loyalty, but it isn't always about the next one in, especially the last 1.5 to 2 years. If you have a recurring revenue stream, especially, you've probably experienced quite a bit of churn.
Yeah.
You got to get ahead of that. You can't wait till the churn shows up to say, I'm going to address churn. It's got to be an ongoing, every month of the year kind of process that you have in place to not only deliver value, but to keep them up to speed and informed, and so that they don't forget about you, and continue to find ways to give back to them since, they've been with you for so long. And so I think a lot of businesses forget about that. You're so infatuated with who's coming in the front door, you forget about who's going out the back door. And it's not as heavy of a lift and not nearly as costly to keep someone from going out the back door than it is to try to convince them to come in front. So.
Well, and plus too is that your existing customers are also going to be your biggest referral base, your biggest way to keep yourself out there in the market. And one of the value builders we discussed, it's like, hey, do you have the ability within your organization to upgrade and offer more, not only for new customers, but for the existing customers as well? How do you make them? And we just switched to the community model to give our existing, obviously new customers to take advantage of it, but it was existing customers who said to us like, hey, you want us to stay around longer than your typical life cycle. What else, you guys have so much more to offer. Can you offer it? And so that's what Ferrari does with their loyalty stuff, for sure.
Speaking of the community model, we had a coaching call with all of the clients that are in the community last week. And, one of the things we talked about was building an emotional connection between not only your brand and your customers, but also your brand and your team. Ferrari's another great example of a company that's done that. I mean, you don't buy Ferrari because it's the most dependable vehicle out there. You don't buy Ferrari because the maintenance costs are going to be low. You've got a client that used to have these adventures to where they would set up a track like in an old mall parking lot, and you could go around the race course, the track course, in a Ferrari. Well, you get to see their repairs and maintenance line, and when a clutch goes out on a Ferrari, it's expensive to fix. It's pretty expensive, and it's expensive. And so, no, you don't buy it because of those things. You buy it because of the status symbol that it brings, which is all emotion. So what emotion is associated with your servicing? And if not, you need one. There needs to be an emotional event whenever somebody purchases it. And there needs to be an emotional event that your team is tied to. in the creation of the product or service. So.
It's funny. We were talking about Ferraris, like you sent me that. And then like the main article on the Wall Street Journal today is the U.S. economy depends more than ever on rich people. That's what we're not trying to do here, people. Like there's a lesson here. But seriously, I was reading that article and it says the top 10% of earners, households making $250K a year or more, are splurging on everything from vacations to designer handbags and real estate, and I guess maybe Ferraris too. So,
when you look at discretionary income, it is a driver. We saw, the drunken COVID spend, as I call it.
Oh yeah.
When folks are just spending money like there was no tomorrow, what it did economically. And, when the discretionary income started to fall, inflation creeps up, company performance isn't quite as good. So that means that raises are a little bit lower than normal, and incentive compensation and bonuses start to fall off and those kind of things. It hurts. And so all you're left with are the folks who already had enough discretionary income.
Well, that's why I was interested when I asked what the vibe was at the online conference, because I sort of think of, if times are tough and things are tight, like, are you going to spend on the lawn? It's like, all right, well, I spend $200-300 a month, or I got a mower, I can just mow it. It's one of those. But I think now, I don't know. First of all, I'm not one of the rich people, but I pay to get my lawn done. But there's a lot of saturation, so you can find people to do it decently. But when you look at the cost, man, combined with someone to mow the yard every other week, and then you get the application of the stuff that you put on there. It gets a little pricey. That's why I was curious to.
Yeah. Well, the best ones have done a great job of communicating that they're not selling lawn services. They're selling time.
Yep.
And, do you want to be at your kid's ball game, or do you want to be cutting your grass? Do you want to be taking your family out to dinner on a Saturday afternoon, or do you want to be cutting grass? And so as packed the schedules are for most everybody, that's
that's actually why I had to start getting it done, because having kids, I had to be somehow all these places at one time, and it was like there's no way I could do it anymore. There's just not. It's killing me on the weekends to get it done. Well, awesome. Well, good talk, man. I think next week, I don't know what is on the dial. I know we have a guest coming up. We have another entrepreneur guest coming up.
We got one. I think we're actually recording it later this week.
Yes, we are. Yeah, I think it's Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have a little bit of an international vibe.
Dude, this dude's awesome. I met with him to talk about this podcast. Y'all are gonna like this one. He's in the U.S. a ton. He's doing tons. He has tons of stuff going on here in Australia. I was like, I'm like, man, I don't know how you make that flight like that. I can't. That's a long time in the air. It's a lot of trust in those planes to fly that long. But nonetheless, this dude's really cool, awesome guy, and y'all like him. So we'll be talking to him. They're recording it Thursday. So. But all right, well, for Brandon, I'm Mike, and we'll catch y'all soon. I guess Thursday, and then whenever that airs, but we'll be back next week recording our regular rhythm. See ya.
If you want to know more about driving sustainable profitability for your business, or are interested in learning more about CRI Simple Numbers, please visit our website at simplenumberscri.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers Podcast. You can subscribe to Profitability Playbook on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. If you liked what you heard today, please leave us a review. The views expressed on Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers podcast, are those of the presenter and moderator and do not necessarily reflect the views of CRI Simple Numbers or the CRI family of companies. This podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional advice received directly. Consult with your CRI Simple Numbers advisor or another trusted professional if you have questions about your specific situation.